All right, I will call to order the Geauga County Automatic Data Processing Board special meeting for Wednesday, September 27th.
Hang on, Frank, can you just hang on just a sec, sorry.
23.
Do I need to start anything else?
Start the recording.
Sorry, Frank. It's slow mouse.
Yes.
And hang on, I gotta admit more people. Okay, Frank, go ahead, start.
Okay, I will call to order the Geauga County Automatic Data Processing Board special meeting for Wednesday, September 27th, 2023 at 10 a.m. This is a special meeting, so we have 10 agenda items for discussion. The first one is the approval of the ADP meeting minutes from August 16th, 2023. We'll look for a motion and a second on that, and then have discussion. Is there a motion? A motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, is there discussion on the meeting minutes from August 16th, 2023? We have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the meeting minutes from August 16th, 2023, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion stands approved. Number 2 is the approval of the ADP DocuSign Inc. e-signature enterprise. I'll give a brief overview before we get to motion, a second discussion. We are pushing this out internally with ADP, probably auditor, and maybe another entity or two that want to join on. We are transforming all of the ADP approvals to a completely digital process. This is the beginning of that process as we move away from paper with those. We believe that not only is it 2023, we're trying to go paperless to some extent with that, but more importantly, in terms of complying with the state auditor's requests for user forms and approvals and documentation for it and ease of access. That is our plan. So we are trying out DocuSign. We've been using a Zoho product for the past year, which has had certain limitations. So we've been vetting this DocuSign product. That's the direction we're going with.
So if I could just add, while the Zoho product was a step better than paper, we found that the paper, if we reverted back to paper to save money, we have found that more times than not, approvals were stuck in people's mailboxes for months on end, and they discovered them and then tried to resubmit them. The paperless approach allows for a better and quicker transfer if somebody's not available, as you can all appreciate. So we hope that the process becomes quicker, although it does come with a cost. And how, I guess my question is, I know we're paying for it by groups of envelopes, but how long will this last?
Yeah, we're getting 5,000 envelopes based on what we do over about a 1.5-year time period. So theoretically that should last 18 months, but if other entities join on and we parse those out, it won't last that long then. I don't know. Somewhere between a year and 18 months.
Okay, so this is at least a year, probably more.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the biggest suggestions that I have received in the last couple of years was the speed of the approval process while still maintaining the integrity of the approval process to ensure that what we approve meets the standards, but then speeding up sort of the administrative end of it. So I think that this is going to help us get there. So I'll look for a motion to approve agenda item number 2.
Make the motion.
A motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a second, Dr. Walter. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. All right, motion stands approved. Agenda item number 3 is the approval of the engineer's CCI security camera campus upgrade. We've been working closely with the engineer. I'll give a brief overview and then turn it over to Katie. This has been part of a countywide camera upgrade. ADP and the auditor have done the entire annex area. The courts were a little bit ahead of that 3 or 4 years ago where they did the courthouse main project, and now the engineer is doing their end of it. So I'll look for a motion in a second, and then we can sort of push that. So we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Before we get into discussion, I don't know if you just want to highlight
Just for the record, the Bobsey twins.
If you want to highlight just the general idea of what you're doing here.
Sure. Over the last 10 years, we've been adding incrementally cameras to to campus at the engineer's office. And this is kind of like the final phase to cover all the final dead zones of, fuel island to the materials to, all the vehicles and getting that all upgraded, so.
So this the salt bin and all that stuff?
Everything will be
So
covered now.
People sneaking in at night to
Stealing the salt.
grab a bucket of salt
Yeah.
People do that?
without cameras.
How would you know?
There's known to be salt in the back of my truck.
So that's essentially it, just kind of finalizing out the cameras project, so you should be covered after this is completed.
Yeah, it's a real good project. I know you guys have worked with Joe Burley on it. Using the
Yeah, he's been
access cameras, I mean, you guys are getting Homeland Security recommended cameras, and
Yeah.
anytime that happens,
Yeah,
very happy with
as a
that.
general rule, there's been some growing pains learning that a camera, every camera isn't the same. A camera from Walmart, a camera from Best Buy is not the same as every other camera. So ADP has been pretty strict, and this is under guidelines from Homeland Security and the Secretary of State, that we don't want Chinese components that are transmitting and emitting records to China for their voyeurism. And so, unfortunately, most of the cameras that don't have those features are a little more expensive, or they're harder to find.
I think that was your issue. You got a good price on them. You're adding a
Oh, yeah.
number of high-end cameras.
Yeah.
It was the
Availability.
availability.
Yeah, because everybody wants them now.
Yeah.
Because everybody's getting, smarter people get, the harder they
Yeah.
are to find.
It sounds like you're getting some of them early, and then maybe some of them are going to take
That's what Joe just said.
6 months or so.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, that's good.
Is this cloud-based storage?
No, the cameras operate on an on-prem server because of the amount of data they push up, but the backup and the storage of it ends up being cloud-based, so it's hybrid. Our camera footprint here, we push up so much data in terms of storage that we don't have the pipes and bandwidth to push this
Yeah.
completely cloud-based.
We've
Not
had to
my
kind of
question.
pick and choose how we're moving cloud technology, and because of the data size, we are worried with cameras moving cloud. You probably realize, like, when you're pulling the car in and they're downloading all the data, that's when everything spikes. And if you can imagine all these cameras, how many are at the new building?
130.
130 of them, all the time dumping if somebody walks by. We just would have to have an incredible pipe for the internet. And we just said, let's not do those, let's do those on-prem still. And that overhead and maintenance is really not
Yeah.
that great. So I think we'll stay that way for a while, but we may eventually either have a separate pipe for those or find an alternative method of internet.
Yeah, I think we only have 4 servers, 4 megabits. Yeah, so, yeah, they're not a huge tax on the system, but they would be on the data flow.
So we've got
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no.
How long is this going to take to finish?
Motion stand approved. It looks like he's beginning, once this goes through, it sounds like your people at your location need to do a lot of the, sounds like underground boring,
Yeah.
trenching, some pads put in. I'm gonna say 6 months.
Yeah.
This is a huge project. It's a good project. All right, next agenda item is number 4, meeting request by Water Resources for mission systems presentation and approval of outstanding mission invoices and quotes for replacement and new equipment.
So, Nick, I've launched it. If you tell me when, I will hit the when button. The mouse is not behaving really well, so
All right.
it may take me a little while to hit it. And just so that I'm clear, if Amy Patterson, if you're out there, if you could unmute, let me know if you can see this presentation. Is it being shared?
Thank you.
Just some copies for closer.
I think maybe woke up Amy. Or
Yes,
Gabe.
I can see it. I just forgot where the unmute button was. I'm
Oh, okay.
sorry.
So you can see the PowerPoint, right?
I can see the PowerPoint. Thank you for asking.
Okay, thanks.
Nick Goris, Department of Water Resources. Just want to let you know, Dell Champion from Mission Communications is also online
Okay.
for any other questions that may come up when I'm done with the presentation. The intent here is to give you a little bit of idea of what Missions does for the department and just a little explanation of what SCADA is. So Chuck, if you could hit the next slide. So currently, just a little bit of department information. Our department is 37 staff. We have 27 wastewater treatment plants, 38 sewage pump stations, 4 water service areas, 2 water treatment plants, 2 booster stations, and over 170 miles of collection and distribution systems, and 1 EPA certified laboratory. Encompasses, so when you look at it, there's 1,700 accounts. Some of them are dual accounts where we do supply water and sewer to both. Go ahead, Chuck. For your information, SCADA, supervisory control and data acquisition. Basically, SCADA is used all over the place for us. We use it for something to monitor our devices and control and collect some real-time data for our remote locations, being Geauga County and as rural as we are. We're not like the city of Cleveland where there's one Northeast Regional Sewer District where it all goes to. With all of those plants, it's hard to take 37 people and run around all over the county and keep a check on it. So the missions, the SCADA part of this is what helps us process that. Go ahead, Chuck, please. And SCADA is our 38th staff member. So in fact, it's probably, it has eyes that we can't see all the time. So from a remote. So why missions? Missions was a program that was reviewed, I'm going to say there was a bunch of others back around 2010, 11, and 12. Prior to missions coming on board with Geauga County, we used dial-up controls. And what that means is like your Gilmore or your home security system, if an alarm went off, you would get a dial-up call, alarm, and you'd get that recording voice that would come through. Wouldn't tell you much. We'd have to dispatch somebody to that site to find out what is wrong with it. And this is where missions comes in. We're able to see it. So Chuck, if you can flip over to the next one. So currently, the Department of Water Resources with missions started in 2012. We have what's called 2 accounts with missions. We have a water account and we have a sewer account. So our missions splits up, and there's 61 RTUs or remote terminals that are in use. And for reference, if you want to see, this is what a remote terminal looks like. All the controls are inside it. And it's basically, this is a legacy device that's no longer used. We have quite a few of these, and we have some of the newer devices is what we're going to. So in a remote pump station, we can run that solar. It's cellular built in. We have 61, and I say RTUs in use. We have about 69, 8 of them are on the shelf, miscellaneous parts, just because so we have more units. Most of them don't work, they're more for parts. In our accounts, from a standpoint of the program, when you're in the program, we have 6 water users, 5 RTUs or remote terminals for our water side, and we have 20 currently sewer users in our department, and there's 56 of those units. So you can see we've implemented this more into our sewer side, but our water facilities, aren't also as large as our sewer, geographic footprint. Chuck, thank you. There we go. So regarding our mission system and our water uses, this is a couple snippets of what the website web app does for us. If you look on the left, there's the map. You'll see 5 green symbols. Those symbols are both our Bainbridge Water Tower, our Bainbridge Country Lane booster station, and our Knowles booster station. Our Bainbridge system, we don't treat the water from Bainbridge. All of that water comes from the City of Cleveland. So we have a metering agreement with the City of Cleveland. That water all comes from the City of Cleveland, hence the reason of the booster pump. But we can monitor those booster pumps with mission in real time. The 2 squares up on the top right of that map, that is our Services Center Water Tower and our Services Center treatment facility. So around the Merritt Road, Ravenwood, we do treat that water that comes out of the well before it's delivered. On the right, you'll see like a weekly management report. It's something that Missions kicks out to us. It gives us an idea of, right there you'll see it gives us the number of 110 RTUs or the Mydros. They're just different, the newer versions, the older versions, and gives us a real quick snippet. So in the standpoint of the water side, we use missions to monitor our pumps. If the pumps are running, we use it to monitor the elevation of the water tower, how much water is in the tower, which pumps are running, and then at the same time, we can see if it's at low. So missions is our first information. So a water tower runs high, say if it can overflow, that tank is not a pressure tank, so it will overflow. So let's just say a pump gets turned on in a system and it's in your computer, and for some reason there's an issue in the electronics. The pump gets turned on and it runs. It's going to fill that tower. It's going to get to a point, it's going to kick out a high water alarm. Missions will actually call who we have on our system and let them know you have a high water alarm. Our supervisor can look at the device and say, no, it's faulty. He can look at missions and tell what it is. If the water gets a little bit higher, we also have Gilmore as a backup. There's another float in that tower that Gilmore will call us and say, just in case you missed that one, you have another alarm. If that happens, and let's say for some reason everybody's on vacation and nobody's here, which we'll get to in that point, it will overflow the tower. The tower is fine, it'll overflow, it'll run down, it goes down into a drainage ditch and runs out and actually goes through the side of the engineer's department. But that's just purely a fail-safe. Same thing happens on a low mode. As it gets down to a low point, missions will kick out. It gets lower than that, if it gets to the point of cavitation or empty, we'll also get another call from Gilmore. So we have backups in that system. In an instance with the water side, if we get into a low pressure mode, large fire, remotely we can go in there and play with the pumps and turn that pump on. We do not feed any chemicals, we do not feed anything. That is all monitored in person. By EPA standards, we have to be at our plant 7 days a week. Not 24 hours a day, but we have to test that water 7 days a week. By doing so, some will ask, can the tower run out? If somebody shut the pumps off and it doesn't fill in. Our tower currently will last us 4 days. 3 days, last week I could have said it would have lasted 6 days. But now the hospital is currently tied into our water system, so our storage is 3 days without pumps running. So we'll be able to run water for 3 days. By checking and getting on site every day, we can look at it, we can monitor the elevation of the water. In fact, Thursday night when the hospital tied in, my phone went off and the supervisor's phone went off as we were working on a hydrant in Bainbridge, and we're like, what's going on in here? That was a part of the time where the hospital was firing up, so it triggered us, let us know that we had a substantial drop in the tower. When I say substantial, it dropped a foot. So our alarms, our trigger points are really tight for us to keep an eye on it of what's going on. Being a 30-foot high, the tower being as high as it is, again, a 1 foot with our water supervisor kind of gets him on edge because we haven't seen that. Without the hospital, to case in point, the new office building uses 8,000 gallons per day. On a weekend, Saturdays, it uses 1,000. On a Sunday, there's no water usage. So you get an idea of the amount of water. So daily right now, we're going to pump out of Merritt Road Services Center probably 65,000 gallons of water a day. And that's coming out of the ground into the well. So we can monitor all of this through missions. If you go to the next slide. In real-time monitoring, you can see this is another view of our water system. On the left-hand side, you'll see tank pressures and elevations of the tower and the water. On the right side, this is all dedicated straight to our services center. So at any time, we could be bringing up, all these screens, not only our Bainbridge system, but also our services center, and be monitoring that system real-time anywhere we want to be. Next slide, Trevor. Case in point, here's a typical water tower. I just wanted to throw it in here. There, in the length of that tower, depending on its height, this tower is perfect for that's the tower actually at Merritt Road, and it's a perfect height for us. Unfortunately, the one in Bainbridge is 20 feet too short, sorry. If it would have been 20 feet taller, if the Bainbridge forefathers would have allowed it way back when, we would have needed one of those booster pumps. So, in order to push the water. Inside that tower, there's actually a walkway to go up the middle. If anybody would ever like to go see, I probably wouldn't let you walk up into the tower, but if you wanted to see this system, I'd be happy to take you around. There's numerous, inside that tank, there's numerous floats. And those are the floats that just staggered as the water elevation hits it, it's a current, and it triggers, lets us know, hey, this is how much water you have in the tower. Yeah.
How many wells?
Which location? So right now, the services center, currently, we have 2 wells. With our agreement with the hospital, we're looking to take over their 2 wells. So we will have 4 wells that back up that system. So our wells are 2 and 3. We don't call it 1 because 1 was an old well that we replaced. What was going to be number 4 is probably where the playground is behind the new office building. So that was planned. That was where our plan for our next well was going to be. So with this hospital going on, we're going to pull their wells, which will back it up. So that can go to the next one. Emissions in sewer, very similar. You look at our map, you're going to see everything is a different size, different color. Green is good. You know, everybody knows green is good. What you see there, this was actually a picture of that last storm that came through and knocked out all the power. All the purple basically says there's no communication. So at that point in time, we release all of our crew, go out and make sure generators are running, you know, with no power. The ones that are still green in that area do have generators, so they are running, emission systems communicating. So the ones that were not, we would send out guys to crews to go and check to make sure, you know, just because it doesn't communicate power-wise doesn't mean the generators won't run. And based on what it is it a package plant? Is it the larger 1.2? Is it Parkman? Is it Thompson? All of this data we can pull from emissions. If you go to the next one, here's another snapshot of, you know, a pump station. Actually, that's Henning. So that's our newest plant, Chardon Wastewater Treatment Plant at the intersection of Wing and Auburn. We can look at our pump run times. We can look in there and tell if our generator's firing. You know, it'll give us, you know, from the standpoint of what emissions will also do, most of our pump stations, and there is a pump station at Henning, have 2 pumps in them. They alternate when they run. So as a wet well fills up, pump 1 will run. If it triggers, pump 1 runs. It drops it, draws it down. The next time the cycle runs, pump 2 will run. It automatically switches over. So every day, or as you want to look at it, we get what's called, in the morning, we'll get daily reports by email. The daily reports will give us a snapshot of our pump run times. And when you look at it on this report, it's hard to see, but there's a bar chart, and it gives you a green X in the middle. Both of them should be right in the same spot. So ideally, in a 24-hour period, pump 1 and pump 2 should run about the same amount of time. If you open it up in the morning and you look at it, and it'll tell you when you have alarms. Pump 1 is, you know, all the way, the X is all the way to the left, and pump 2's X is all the way to the right. On the snapshot, it's letting you know you have a problem. You know, there could be a clog with pump 1. It could be an equipment failure. Emissions allows us to know that and tells us where to go and report to in the morning. Next slide, please.
If one pump doesn't work, does the other pump keep working?
Yes. So it always triggers. Some of our pump stations have 3 pumps in them. So whereas with a flow, 1, 2 will run. Next time it'll be 2 and 3, so that you're always running based on the amount of flow that is running through it. So typical pump station up here right now, on the left side of the screen is your wet well. That's where you'll see the pump kind of device hanging in the middle of the screen. That is a submersible pump. You can't see it, but there's 2 in line on that one. And then up in the middle of the screen is if you have an upper pump. Some of our pump stations have dual stage, pumps in the wet well, pumps in the surface. Most new pump stations now and motors are all surface with pipes into the ground, safer, but this is just a typical pump station. Next slide for me, Joe. So again, why about emissions? All of the information that you have, that you're seeing here is straight off of their website. SOC 2 certified regarding security auditing. They currently, for your information, now is they're just getting their report for their most recent review of the SOC 2. So that'll be coming out. So RTU connectivity, how do these work? They're cell-based units. Signals go out via a large cell network. They are encrypted from the device itself, and then once it goes into the cell network, it's encrypted again, transferred to their home base in Georgia. where they take the data, translate it, and then they'll kick out the reports. So once the encrypted data reaches the cell towers, it's forwarded to missions over an encrypted VPN. So the data is all run through cell, RTU, each individual one has a cell connection. It may be Verizon, it may be AT&T, it just depends on which one has the power at that time. Click on the next one. Web access, so this is how we access it. We can access two ways, through your computer sitting at your desk, and also through a mobile app. I can look at this 24/7. It'll also kick out alarms. All activities are logged. Access from anything outside the U.S. and Canada is automatically flagged by missions. So if there's somebody trying to reach in, it's automatically flagged by missions. Inside threat mitigation, regarding the user access, there's 4 user rights that are out there. There's a public, a read-only, an admin, and a super admin. We have one super admin that runs the entire system. Our water supervisor and our maintenance supervisor are regular admins. Everybody else is a read-only/acknowledge, which means if an alarm kicks off, they can acknowledge it on the phone, so everybody else isn't getting the alarm, meaning he's going to go respond to it or he's handled it. Yeah.
What level of access does the vendor have?
What level of access does a vendor? I'm trying to think of right off the bat. They're not into our system. Del, I don't know if you can answer that question for me. What level of access do you have outside without our permission?
We do have the ability to go in and make changes for you, unless you tell us to delete our account.
Okay, thank you.
And also, I do want to clarify, I know it says read-only, but the read-only account is actually, you have the ability to acknowledge alerts as well.
So is he admin or super?
Who? Del, what would you classify your access as, super admin?
Oh, our access would be a super admin, because we had, number one, we had to set up your account to begin with, right?
Right, thank you.
So, since we're on access, what character length requirement do you have for password?
I can get to, it's at the end.
Okay.
But it's a 6 minimum character with a number. It's unlimited in length though, can be unlimited in length.
And actually, your
special characters.
designated super admin will determine your password policy for you.
Who has super admin besides this guy?
So just
Nick.
I do. Currently I do. Currently I control all of that. So I can reset passwords or request passwords to be reset at any time globally. Click on somebody's account. If they come in late, click reset your password today. So that can be sent at any point in time. So again, 6 is the minimum with a number, and it can go unlimited in any length with special characters and numbers. Can you click the next slide for me? So again, just a little bit more information. All of this is available on Mission's website. None of this is, you can click on their website and find all. But again, cellular data transfers across the network, encrypted. Technical support is always there. Every time I call Dell, he's available. If I have a question, he's available. There's secure servers. It's housed in a facility featuring 125-mile-an-hour wind rating. It's a, from the standpoint of where the information is stored, it's pretty solid. The next slide for me. So, go ahead.
What happens if the cell towers go down?
So we'll go, if the cell towers are down, we're back to our normal, we're gonna go back out and check. If we don't have communications, we're gonna send our crews out to check it. Again, water, we're checking 7 days a week. If we're in a storm, we're driving around. We already know some of our equipment, some of our systems aren't completely backed up by generator. We're already gonna run them off. We're gonna go check them out in a storm of that nature. So we already have our backup protocol. Go ahead and hit that. Not sure why. Again, regarding the password, 6 characters minimum, including 1 number, maximum unlimited, including special characters. Next one. User account setup, we talked about it, public, read-only, admin, super admin. Currently, again, the vendor, super admin, and us, we have 1 super admin. That is me. Next one. So the other question that has come up is multi-factor or two-factor authentication. Currently, Dell, you can correct me, it's available if we had a single user account. If it was just me and I was responsible for the entire account, that would work. But because we have multiple users into our two accounts, it's currently not available. And just again, I wrote in here, it's in development. We talked about it, potential for the end of 2023. Dell, anything different on that since our last conversation? I'm assuming not.
No,
No.
no difference.
Wait, if I could real quickly,
Yeah.
when you say individual users, you have multiple users, two accounts, does each individual user that accesses the mission system, whether it be public, read-only, admin, super admin, do they have their own account for it?
They have their own user and password. So we have a sewer and a water account. So all of our sewer facilities are under a sewer account. So some of our teams can't get on the sewer, some of our team cannot get on. Because they're in the water department, they don't all get on the sewer. Because they're running, they do sewer, they can't get on the water. So right now, our water supervisor can get on the water side. He cannot get on the sewer side.
So when somebody logs in, is there a log file that's created that records who is it that logged in, what their IP address is, or what their geo space is, and what
Yes.
Yes.
and where they're clicking?
And where they're clicking is like geolocation of where they're clicking from.
No, where they're clicking in the application.
So it tracks it.
It tracks.
Tracks when they log in. Dell, correct me, I don't know if they actually track what unit they're hitting.
It doesn't track what unit they're hitting. It will track anything they do. So if they acknowledge an alarm, that's logged.
Okay.
If they try to make changes, that's logged. But if it's just passive, they're looking at stuff, no, it won't log that.
Okay, so, and who sets the password policy?
Super.
You do.
So that would be me.
Okay, is that written?
Is that, no, it's not written yet, no. But it will, we're going towards the year 25 character.
Okay.
Do you have the ability to view the logs?
Yes. I'd be happy to sit down with you and you can look at it.
I don't want to see them, I just want to know that
Right.
you as a super
Yeah.
admin has the
Yeah.
ability to view the logs,
Yep.
so you can keep an eye on it.
And is there a timeout, login timeout feature? Or a attempt timeout?
Yes.
Okay, what is that feature?
It's 5 attempts, and you get locked out for 10 minutes.
Is that variable? Can you set that?
No. And we see it here also. And if you have a problem, that's why you can call tech support. They can unlock it for you. Yeah, that's the setting right now.
Okay, and it's indefinite, right? It'll continue to do that forever
That's right.
with this 10-minute gap.
In fact, we've had to like turn that off so that pen testers can try to hack us.
Yeah, okay.
Next slide.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's all right. So, additional benefits of our mission system. We're allowed reduced on-site operator man hours. It's EPA permitted utilizing an improved SCADA system that does continuous monitoring. So that reduces man-hour times of actually being on site at all the treatment plants. With the number of plants that we have, it allows us to focus more on the larger plants, spend the time where we need to be, and still log and meet and be compliant with all of our EPA requirements. Doesn't change our requirement for water. We still have to be there 7 days. We still have to test that water 7 days a week. So we're always on site. And then the other thing that we're using missions for right now is we're using it for other flow monitoring. So currently some of the flow from Bainbridge Township actually flows over to the plant Meadowbrook in Sugar and Falls. The commissioners have a current agreement with Sugar and Falls. We're a 22% owner of that plant. So our flow goes to there, they bill us. We're able to monitor that flow and pay by the flow. So we use that in between the different municipalities to track that flow between those two locations. Next slide. So emissions is a valuable resource. It's been, again, in service since 2012 as best as my research is, from our first account. when it was put in was in 2012. Again, I said, it's that additional employee, staff member that provides us valuable information, not only for maintenance, for run times, for generator times, us to be able to calculate flow, actual flow, to find out, hey, where is additional flow coming, so we can monitor I&I, infiltration from during rain events, we can track where it's coming, allows us to track even if we get suspicious substance, we can go back and track our pump stations of which ones we're firing, so which could be pushing it. So, request is, if I should say, is there any other questions, commissions, and why we use it?
I kind of have a question, and maybe I'm just not understanding, but, so missions was in place whenever the system was hacked? I mean, like,
Well, I don't believe the mission system was hacked. The mission was being used when Water Resources was hacked. Yes, but it's not connected to
It's
the
not.
mission system.
oh, okay,
Right.
okay, that's what I was
No.
confused by.
So,
But to your point, one of the things that I sort of was confused about, and I don't know how much you can answer this because it predates you, but Jared Morgan's been saying that mission has been used for 30 years or something like that. This is the first I've heard it's only been since 2012.
SCADA has been used, so before missions,
Yeah.
so let me put, so before that we
SCADA's a
did dial,
concept.
we did dial-up. So before missions came into play, it was all dial-up.
But it was a different product.
It was a
wasn't
different product that from my research,
So-
it's a different product that was dial-up, and that was where it would just, an alarm would dial off the phone and you get a call and it would just, message would be high water, Auburn Corners.
But to your point, mission has only been in operation with Department of Water Resources since 2012.
Based on everything that I've located, it's 2000.
Is that what Dan or whatever his name is? Just he?
Dell. Dell, I don't know if you can look back, but when it actually started for, Water Resources, that's something you know off the top of your head, but I think it was 2012. Based on everything that I can find when we started.
Yeah, the oldest units I see here are from 2013, so 2012 would
Yeah.
probably be about right.
Yeah.
That's very helpful. That's the most clarity we've gotten on the history of mission in 2.5 years now.
I'll say this, if anybody wants to come and see how these plants run, any of the treatment plants, or how the water facilities run, we're more than happy. We're working right now potentially with Hershey Montessori. We're working with Cuyahoga Community College for their environmental science courses to bring people in to take a walk around. We're willing to show it around here. So,
I have another question. Why do they not all have generators?
slow, it's cost, and we're not far behind, we're not that far off. It's just some of the older pump stations, those are the ones, we've got 2 or 3 that we're working on. We have backup generators that we can take to each location, so when we get that call, we're there and we put in a backup generator. It's just not an on-site, just a slow roll of maybe what was done at that time, but in fact, we're looking to put 2 more into 2 different systems next year.
So with Mike Kersinger's appointment being terminated, who's the OT point person for managing the OT?
Me.
Okay. Are you,
Now that that decision is made, we're looking towards,
Okay.
yes. I do not want to do this the whole time, so we will be
I
looking.
imagine you could with running the department.
So,
So why don't we make the motion and then have a discussion about it?
It is agenda item number 4.
4 was just the presentation, and then
Yeah. So I think agenda item number
5, and the next 2 agenda items are, 4 was just the presentation of the system, the next 2 are approval of the
Oh,
use of
okay,
the
so
systems first.
there's no
City
action to
water.
take on the presentation?
No, it's just a presentation.
Well, it says approval of outstanding invoices and quotes before,
Oh,
but then it says approval of communications service, sewer service, and water service.
so,
Okay, so how
Are
do you
the
want?
outstanding invoices part of what's in 5 and 6?
be my understanding that
Okay.
was part of.
Because I just
That
wrote it
covers,
the way you
right,
wrote it.
yeah.
So I
So
think
the
we-
presentation was just to give you a presentation.
Okay.
So the
what-
other two is approval of the system to cover
Why
those
don't
outstanding.
we go to
invoices,
those other items and then we'll discuss the system?
Okay, being that there's no request for action on agenda item number 4, we'll move on to agenda item number 5. And I think to some extent for those less intellectual in the room as myself, you'll have to explain the difference between approving communications sewer service and communications water service when we get there. So agenda item number 5, we'll look for a motion and a second on approving Water Resources Mission's communications sewer service. So is there a motion for approval of the sewer service?
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
We have a second.
So a couple of things I'd like to discuss. My biggest concern, kind of putting it on net, is I don't want to add anything to our infrastructure that reduces our security. I think, and I hate to pick on board of elections all the time, but Nora and Michelle, you made a comment to me yesterday when you were coming out of your budget. Would you mind repeating that comment?
We had 4 gentlemen from DHS come to our office and spent 4 days trying to penetrate or see where our systems were at. They said it was one of the tightest they had ever seen. And they had
Right, the year that they've been doing this, they've never seen it.
So DHS is Department of Homeland Security, and that's part of your requirement as a Board of Elections. You know, they told me that as I was walking in the budgets, and I appreciate that because it always changes your temperament walking into the budget hearings. Getting good news rather than getting yelled at. But I think what I reflected on after hearing that was, you know, that is our bar, in my view. That, as an ADP board, our bar has to be the highest level of security. There can't be anything more important than our security. So we have to be careful. It's like hiring employees. You always try to hire better employees because your average moves up. It doesn't move down, right? The more products that you employ that have lower security thresholds, it just lowers your bar. It doesn't increase your bar. Now, that doesn't mean I'm against this product. What it means is we need to make sure the bar is established for this product. I would propose that Water Resources, pending this approval, that you pen a formal policy for passwording and it be approved at least by the ADP center, okay? Maybe the board should approve it, but you're the best, the ADP center's the best judgment of what are we willing to tolerate as far as minimum password requirements. Look, 6-character, 1 number is not acceptable in my view. Multi-factor, it should be a requirement, not a potential future benefit. So I think we need to hold vendors' feet to the fire so that we don't just get promises of it, that we actually get a deliverable. We're all going to MFA. We're all walking around with these now. It's normal course of action. Amazon's been using it for 5 years. We need to use it eventually in every one of our systems. So I think if they're committing that by the end of the year they should have that employed, I think we need to put that threshold in the approval process so that we can then test it to be sure it does meet it for multi-factor come January. So I guess I'm looking at this with a caveat. I'm okay with the motion to approve, provided this motion approves it for the remainder of this year and we revisit this in January to see if their security has been improved, and pending an approved written policy that can be audited, because the state auditor is going to be auditing these when they come in. That password policy has to be in stone, and it's got to be no less requirement than what we currently use everywhere else in the county. And that's going to push people to multi-factor, because you know, the longer the passwords, the more inconvenient it becomes, and they all want this because they don't have to remember that long password. That's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. That's my biggest worry, is that we need to have credentials maintained. The hacks are coming in through logins that are stolen in some way. The other concern that I have that I guess may be already remediated, but I just want to be sure. I understand that Water Resources used to have a habit of putting all of their passwords in a flat file. For those that don't know what a flat file, it's a text file. It's just plain characters. So anybody with WordPad can call it up and you can read everything that's in there. It's not encrypted. All of their passwords were embedded in a flat file stored on one of their machines so that they could conveniently find them and remember them. I'm assuming that through the remediation that we did with the hack, that's been changed. Or,
We don't,
That's up,
we don't.
if they keep their
Absolutely, everybody's passwords are their own.
Okay,
I don't
so-
keep track of any of that.
so that's no longer permitted.
And everything
Is-
that I've been running has been changed.
Then I would suggest that part of this password policy you create and write, it's the not allowing people to store in flat file format their passwords. There are password vaults available. There's all kinds of other techniques people use. People embed them in, sophisticated apps on their phone. Whatever they need to do, remember, I get. But putting it on a server, that if the server becomes violated for any reason, you just expose the world, I think is probably not, should be hard written out of the equation in the form of a policy. And I think, given those two things, I don't see anything. Alan, you did the heavy lifting for the last 6 months, 7 months, right? Meeting once a week with Water Resources on mission. I guess, I'm relying that, your feedback to me was it meets our bare minimum standard from a security perspective, being that it now is HTTPS, right? It is a secure site.
Correct.
It does have those requirements that we have. And the passwording is in the process of moving toward our recommendation. But we can start anchoring this with a policy.
Correct, yeah, we need to get that to move forward.
Okay, so are you in agreement that the passwording seems to be the weakest link right now? The fact that it's 6 characters and only one number?
Absolutely, I would agree.
Okay.
And we're ready just to, if you're keeping the system, I'm ready to push it out. I'm ready to hit that button. And I already told our supervisors after today, some of those smaller accounts that aren't used much are all gonna switch up and over.
Well, again, though, whatever you decide on the policy, I think ADP needs to approve it. We need to know what you're doing so that, because we're gonna get blamed.
Completely understand.
Again, not to crack open a wound here, but, I'm reading a September 21st article by Jerry that all the woes of Water Resources were due to ADP. And I just want to clear the record, this board has gone, I think, way out of its way to secure the county's network, well beyond most people's expectations as of right now. I'm not willing to go backward. I don't want to slide backward. And I credit the Board of Elections, you and Scott is a lot to do with this. You've driven us to a point that we now accept it as the norm, which for other counties, obviously, they're not all doing it. And I'm not a big advocate of always comparing what we do to other counties, because sometimes other counties aren't doing it right either. So I interrupted you.
Oh, no, you didn't interrupt. I don't understand if they're falling under the ADP board and we all have to abide by this 25-word password, why are they getting to choose? No offense. Why do you get to choose what your policy is, but the rest of us do not, and we have to follow that policy?
Well, I'm not saying they get to choose the policy. They have to write a policy that conforms to ours.
So at a minimum, it's gonna be.
It's gonna be
the
25
ADP
character.
policy. It could be more. I could make it more.
Yeah,
What
I'm
he's
not
saying.
proposing we
Yeah.
reduce our standard. I'm saying we make them put it in writing that they're honoring our standard and we signed off on it.
But they wouldn't just automatically fall under our policy?
Well,
No?
they're controlling their passwords different. That ADP controls our passwording scheme through, we can test that you didn't enter enough characters
Right.
and deny you access. We don't have that ability with their OT systems. They're controlling OT.
Okay.
So are
So,
you amending your motion to make approval contingent upon them developing a password policy that meets the approval of the ADP?
center or the
Staff.
administrator, yeah. That's what, that is in fact what I'm, and that we also revisit the MFA issue on, say, the first meeting of next year, so that we can revisit this, and if they're not moving toward MFA, we reconsider this entire pitch. And I don't hate to do that to you, Nick. You've done a good job.
I'm all good.
You've done a good job, and
It's all good.
I appreciate that, you brought to light several things that I had questions on. For example, I think you called Berkshire, is actually called Henning.
It's got multiple,
Okay.
depends on which permit, what's
We've-
that, Chardon wastewater treatment plant, Berkshire.
I personally,
any-
have asked for 2.5 years, what is the technology in that plant? And I've gotten crickets. Now I understand what's in it, and that's not a bad thing, but is that plant commissioned?
That plant is functioning.
So that plant has been commissioned since we put, Water Resources on alert that we have not approved that technology. And that bothers me. That bothers me that we're continuing to approve things after they're already in and running. I think we need to get ahead of this at some time. I'm not looking to go back in time, but we did bring this to the attention before Berkshire was commissioned, that we need to approve the technology. I have that in writing to Water Resources. And I'm disappointed that they've commissioned the plant with technology that ADP never reviewed. Now, it's all water under the bridge now, and I'm willing to live with that, but we can't keep doing that going forward. We've got to be ahead of it, not behind it. And I'm offering that in the spirit of future cooperation without bashing too much going backward. But I'll get a couple of jabs in just because it makes Linda cringe. So
Regarding that review of our technology, our OT facilities and any improvements, as a request from me is it going to be like going through Ellen and Zach? Is that to
No.
have to review what we're starting, so before it comes to you? Or how do you want to proceed with, you know what I mean? When I bring in a new plant and we're going to
Yeah,
bring technology, I don't want to bring the whole packet and throw down a set of plans. The possibility of having some point individuals to sit down and review it like
yeah,
Al and
I think the thing that I've learned is everybody wants to create a separate pipeline in to get approvals, right? Help desk is the pipeline. It works. It gets distributed to whoever it has to go to. It's not a perfect engine, but it is documented. It's everything that this logging function is as well. We know who had it, who touched, who didn't do their job, and we can take action on it. If you go to an individual, there's all bets are off, right? Because I can't control that. So what I would recommend is when a new plant is getting ready for work, and you know now what the technology is, you submit it for approval through the proper channel of help desk. They'll tell you if it has to come before the board. They'll give you all the advice you need, and we move down the road. If that is found to be an obstacle because they're not being attentive, then, pull Frank's chain, because that's what he loves you to do. So, I've been involved in sometimes where things fall off the table. So we're not a perfect engine, but I think we're getting better. And I would ask that we just conform to the system that we have.
Thank you.
And I appreciate the question, and I think it was, I'm glad to see that you're looking forward. Sorry.
Okay,
That's
so you
kind of a long
amended your
one.
motion, are you still second it?
Yeah.
You want to do, we need a roll call, or you want to just,
Well, the one piece I would add
I'm sorry.
is that across the county system, we do not permit vendors to have constant super admin access to any of our systems.
Yeah, we don't do that internally on our systems. I think it should be, we're opening that pipe for you now because we need some assistance, and that pipe usually has a timer.
We use user
You-
forms for that.
Yeah, and we know who's in it at any moment in time. And again, I understand this is a legacy issue. Perhaps we should work on that for a January meeting, that whether it's a policy, but usually it's done with technology, right? You have to actually send him
A link.
that says you have access now for the next hour and 15 minutes or whatever you need. And then we know who's in there, and we know if something goes wrong, we know who we can take a look at and see what they were doing. Not that we're not trying to blame anybody, but we are trying to provide the paper trail that's necessary to auditors when they come in and say, what do you do when this incident happens? And you don't want to be the guy that says, oh, I don't know, and then it happens. Is that reasonable, Frank? Can you live with this to wait for the January, or you
The
want?
vendor has current constant access for super admin. Does he use it on a daily basis? Or is it just sitting there dormant when he needs to come in once in a while? That's the larger question here.
Del, can you answer that? Are you still there, Del?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm here. We have constant access. Mainly that's for our technical support folks. Keep in mind, there's no pot of gold at the end of the mission line here. There's no personal information stored, no HIPAA information stored. the other thing, I guess it makes sense to point out that the roles are there to protect you as well, right? So if a user account, okay, even if it had a 6-character password, can only look at the site and acknowledge alarms. There's not anything else they could do.
Yeah, with all due respect,
Uh-huh.
I mean, SCADA by definition is supervisory control and data acquisition.
That's true.
How you use that particular resource and tool is irrelevant to how secure you make that platform. You know, you're just buying stuff on Amazon. That's all you're doing. You're just buying stuff. There's really no life issue, right? Nobody can be killed. But
Correct.
we do multi-factor authentication on Amazon to buy.
But if you hack a Amazon account, you got access to credit cards.
If I can turn on a water pump that can potentially flood a water tower, I think that's kind of important.
Right. No, yeah, I agree there. But you're going to need an admin account at a minimum to turn on a pump.
Yes, but if your password scheme is only 6 characters, your ability to hack it to turn on that pump becomes much quicker. It's
Right.
been
And
proven.
That's if you set a 6-character password,
It's
right?
exactly right. It's been proven that under 8 characters, it's milliseconds to hack.
We know.
Okay.
We are under pressure. Keep in mind, out of the box, it's 6 characters. Okay, that's why we let the customer control set their own password convention. Okay, we have too many small customers that literally we have a water guy and the mayor is his backup. Okay, they want 6-character passwords.
Yeah, with Del, with all due respect, I mean, we're not going to be reduced to the lowest common denominator of the mayor in Podunk, Iowa, who doesn't want to go to long passwords. I need to worry about Geauga County and protecting Geauga County. So
absolutely,
that's the nature of the beast.
No, I understand. That's perfectly. I understand. Yeah, I mean, that was the only. I'm a CISSP. Okay. I have heartburn with this too. I tried to get them to do 8. I got a lot of pushback, and understanding the situation of a lot of customers, and then the only thing I got back was, well, the customers, they have the control to do whatever password link they want.
I don't think the password's a question.
Yeah, I grew up.
We're not going to have a problem with it.
I grew up in an age where people hated the buzzer when you had to put your seatbelt on, but they didn't remove the seatbelts from the cars. So I mean, this is what we're
We're
dealing
good with the password.
It's the marketing challenge to how to sell a product to people who don't want to do something is not our problem. Our problem is securing the network.
So if we resolve this issue of constant
Yeah,
vendor access,
what are you proposing, Fred?
Well, the question I asked, which Dell did not answer, was how often your technicians need the constant access to be in the system. Is this daily, weekly? Is it scheduled with water resources?
Do they know you're in there? Those kind of questions?
We don't need the access unless you call us on tech support. We can disable the account that we have on yours gives
That's
that
how, exactly.
access.
That's how all vendors access our system here. Typically, vendors don't come in the system until we say we need you in the system. At that point, then, Nick would have the ability to check a box that says Dell has super admin access. In the meantime, Dell has read-only access.
So
That's correct.
For you, you could incorporate that into your password policy of providing him a password when you want him in. Then you're going to have to create a back-end log to know when you enabled it and when you disabled it.
Well, if you look at his profile, I assume there's boxes you check in there.
Correct.
Yeah. So
It's just how we manage the
uncheck the super
And
admin. Check.
let me add that any changes we make are also logged, and Nick can see that as well.
That's after the fact.
Okay, so what are we doing?
So
He should be bumped down to read only.
it could be, we could deal with both of these in the password policy.
Okay,
So
so
this will all be
your
contingent.
motion is that it's contingent on them adopting the password policy, which is also going to have the vendor access to conform.
Restrictions, right.
Yeah, to conform with the ADP policy.
Right.
And will be reviewed in January.
And review in January for MFA.
All right, still seconding that?
Yes.
Still on board, Jim?
Yes, sir.
All right. All in favor of approving agenda item number 5 with the amendments, say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion stands approved. So,
The next one is for what, the different,
the water.
the water side, same thing. but
So
water.
again, the two accounts, we have a water account, we have a sewer account. So this one is to, because of the way this is paid for, one is paid out of a water fund, the other is paid out of a sewer fund. So hence the reason to request.
So I'll make my motion with the same caveats that Jim brought to the table.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All in favor, say aye.
Yes.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion stands approved.
Do you get all the ayes out there? Pocket three of the ayes.
One thing, Nick, I'm so glad you detailed all the detailed information, because this is something I've been looking for 5 years and haven't got it. This information, general information about water resources. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Come on over, happy to show it.
Agenda item number 7 is the proposal to the ADP Board of Electronic Key Card System for the county office building.
Linda, you're up.
It's the water.
As you guys know, I came to this game late, and anybody who knows me knows I am not a technology, that's not my wheelhouse. But one of the first things that I was asked to do in this role was to bring some kind of conclusion to the card access issue for the Geauga County Office Building. And in order to do that, I had to find out what happened and why, and what the current status of things was and why, and whether that was a good idea or not. And as I delved into that, I learned that there was sometimes a sense on the commissioner's side of the question that somehow access to the building might be denied if they were not in control. If I say something that isn't a correct representation, please let me know, Commissioner.
Will do.
And then I began to delve into, if we did what the commissioners had said they wanted to do, what was that going to mean for cost and for access for people? And at the end of the day, I went to our board, and then I went to Auditor Walder, and both sides had compromised in order to get to a solution on this, which I really appreciate. So thank you, Board of Commissioners. Thank you, Frank and Chuck. Because at the end of the day, we're all here for the same purpose, to serve the citizens of Geauga County. I've given you a brief one-page overview of what we propose, and basically it is that the control of the server that runs the card access system would come under ADP in perpetuity, and that the creation of the cards for the departments under the Commissioner's hiring authority would be created in the Commissioner's office. And the departments that are in the building that are not under the Commissioners would have the option to create their own or to have ADP create them, and I think we're okay with that, aren't we, Frank?
Yes. If
that's the case. It seems like pretty simple, straightforward. Am I missing anything?
Just so I understand. Who currently has access into this system?
We thought that Intertech was running the server, but they don't think they do. They think that the maintenance department is running the server. Maintenance department didn't know they were running the server. All they knew was they were creating the cards.
How are they creating cards if they're not running the server?
I assumed through a software program.
But the server is physically in an ADP server room.
I don't think they're accessing it in there. I think they're accessing it through a computer in their office to create the cards.
So, okay, so that, now I'm confused. That's the change you made since the first review I've had, right? Correct?
The change that I made was in the first paragraph.
Yeah, who has
The
current?
current seat of access control is a server operated, I thought, by Intertech.
Right.
But the Intertech guy told me maintenance does.
Right, that's why I'm questioning. Here's why I'm questioning. The basis of the lawsuit by the commissioners against ADP that this is trying to solve the whole issue with was based on denial of access. So we haven't changed anything with that server, have we? Do we have access?
We do not have.
We don't have any ability to even log into that server. So what changed?
What do you mean, what
Well,
changed?
if maintenance had the access, how is the suit a denial of the ability of making a key card? We haven't given anybody any other authority, power, or equipment. So they have exactly what they have now that they had when the suit was filed. So what was denied then that isn't being denied now? That's my hang up.
I don't know, I wasn't here then. And up until like this week,
You thought it was Intertech, as did we.
because a guy told me that.
Right.
When I interviewed him, I interviewed Mike Spedich for an hour one day, just to try to figure out what's going on here. And then when I emailed him last week to say, if the board chooses to accept this solution, what will the process be to hand over control of the server to ADP? And his answer was, well, we don't control the server. Well, I said, well, who controls the server? And he said, maintenance does. And I talked to Glenn, and Glenn was like, what are you talking about? Glenn doesn't know that he controls the server. All he does is make cards. So we want you guys to have the server. That's what we want. All we want to do is make cards.
Let's assume that we get to that point. Who has the username
Who's got the
and
credentials?
password to the server that would pass off to ADP?
I'm assuming that Intertech does. I don't know. Keith, are you still here?
Yes, I am.
Can you answer the question of who has the credentials for the server?
Yeah, as part of the construction project, we were required to hand over control of the server to Giaga, whoever that may be, whatever entity that might be, and I believe it was the commissioner's office. So we can access the server for a long time, and I believe it's still this way. We can access the server only through getting access through ADP to the server. The current credentials are held by the maintenance office, I believe Glenn, and there's one other individual. I apologize, Mike's not able to join us today. There was one other individual with Glenn that has access to make cards for the system, but that's it. Now, other people can be, of course, be given access to the server. You can have multiple people getting access for different reasons to the server. But I don't believe that's been established. It's just been handled by the people making the cards currently. So if there's any problem with the server, if we're contacted, we get access to the server through ADP, and that's all. By the way, that's remote access.
Okay, that's my question. Let me go back. You need to define for me the word access. Access has two different connotations. There's an electronic access, which could be remote, it could be on-prem, it could be through a cell connection, it could be through a cloud-based device, and then there's physical.
What the media is to access it. It's all through password. So whether you're accessing the server remotely or you're sitting in front of the server, it's the same way to go about accessing it. The one difference was remotely we had to go through ADP. So
Hang on. No, there's where you got me again. If access that you're referring to is through a passwording scheme and it's remote, Why do you have to go through ADP to get access?
I believe it was the access to local network.
The physical access to the server?
No.
Yes.
Yes,
Well, then it's not remote.
it's not real.
How, okay, if we have a server-based system, correct?
Right.
And maintenance is adding or deactivating cards, they have to access the server to do that, correct?
Correct.
They're not physically accessing the server because they haven't gone into the data room, correct?
You know, I'm not sure I understand that question. I don't believe there's a difference. And so any access to the server is through the software.
Okay, but there's a terminal. There's the server is physically located in the data room, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so if you want to sit at the terminal, and there's a terminal at the server in the data room, correct?
I believe there is, yes.
Okay, so you could physically sit in the data room at the terminal next to the server and add a card, correct?
Yes. All I'm trying to say is that's the same method that you would do it from a remote computer.
So what you're saying is that maintenance has remote access to that server, so they can add a card without entering the data room.
That's correct.
Okay, so
That's all we wanted the answer.
So then here's my question. When then, 6 months ago or a year ago, when you were called to make a card for the Board of County Commissioners and to do something in the system, why did you have to have physical access to the data room where the box was stored? Why couldn't you go to maintenance or anywhere else and remote in?
Would you mind asking that question again? You cut out a little bit. I'm sorry, I'm on the road.
Okay.
Ask that, please.
So I know several times about a year ago, we were asked to open the server room door so that Intertech could get physical access to the computer that's running the keycard access system. Why did we have to open the door if there's remote access?
Oh, I'm not exactly sure. Maybe the remote access wasn't set up yet. I mean, again.
So it was set up
I
after.
don't believe. I'm trying to understand. There's no. As far as I'm concerned, there's no difference between physically being at the server or being at a computer.
You're exactly
on a
You're
local
exactly
network.
right. You're exactly right. The only difference is who gets permission to do it.
Correct. Yeah, and that's just getting through the profile of that person within the system and a password.
Correct.
And punching the keys on the button of the door to get inside.
Yes, correct.
There you go. Okay, so again, I go back to this remote capability, this ability for maintenance to be doing this. Is this new?
They've been making the key cards since I got here.
Okay, so why were we sued?
I don't know the answer to that.
How could we lock you out if maintenance today, there's no change. Nobody's changed. Has anybody changed anything on this box in the last 9? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I believe, now again, I apologize, my project manager, who was a little more intimate with the project, is not on right now, but I do remember meeting with him and talking to him about this. And I believe the concern was, because initially there was problems on the network accessing that server. And the concern then was from the commissioner's office, are we going to continue to have access issues to that server, to the physical server? Yeah. And so to have, so if there was any maintenance that needed to be done physically on the server, maybe it's an operating system issue or something like that, that couldn't happen if the server was in an ADP room that they couldn't get access to. So I believe that was the issue.
But it wasn't an emergency situation. It was just a if we ever need to get access situation.
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
So my question still stands.
Well, it's one he can't answer.
No, I'm not asking him. My confusion is, if right now maintenance is making keys, we have done nothing to enable maintenance to make keys before we were sued. Why were we sued? We were sued because we were threatening to lock the county out of the building. We couldn't make keys. We couldn't change anybody. Do you have credentials to that server? Alan, do you have credentials? Does anyone at ADP have credentials to that server? So how can ADP deactivate a key or create a new key? Ergo, how can it lock anybody out?
I can't speak to the mindset of the board at a time when I wasn't here. I apologize for that. I guess what I was trying to do was come in at the moment when I came in, figure all the things out and try to get to a compromise where we can move forward.
I appreciate
Put this
it.
behind
The
us.
part
In
that threw
fairness,
me-
Chuck, the board didn't really sue us, they never authorized the lawsuit.
Yeah, I guess that's, the reason why I'm bringing this now is because that is the significant change to what you and I discussed. Because when we discussed this approach, you and I both were under the impression that Intertech was required to come in and bang the keys. In the server room, I was not aware there was remote access. I don't know that you were aware.
I assumed that maintenance was accessing whatever they needed in the way of software through another.
That's remote access.
Yes, I assumed
Okay,
that's
I
what
was
they were
unaware that
doing.
maintenance wasn't making any keys because we were constantly being told that ADP was denying maintenance access into the room to make keys, thus locking people out of the building. That's how it was presented.
And we were constantly letting Chris into the room to make
To do
adjustments.
something.
And Chris works for
Intertech.
Yes.
So our understanding was the commissioners didn't want to continue to have to hire Intertech to come in to make a key every time somebody wanted a key card change. That would imply there's no remote access. You had to get into the room to do it, and you had to have somebody authorized to get in, and we weren't letting maintenance in because there's too many other important switches there we don't want them diddling with. And based on your comment, they didn't even know they had access is, I think, a pretty good decision on our part, right? Because they wouldn't know what not to touch. Nor should they. I wouldn't know what to touch. They don't let me in that room. So I guess you first need, I think, to figure out exactly how is that system behaving today. How is it working?
To my knowledge, the maintenance department is making the key cards as they are needed. That is my understanding.
So the concern then now is who's going to maintain the box in the room?
And we want ADP to do that. The server itself. Because concerns were expressed to me that there might not be expertise in, say, the maintenance department to keep that thing secure and functional. And we feel that's your bailiwick. That's my understanding, and I believe, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, the board is okay and wanting you guys to have the server control, and we have agreed that our office will make the keys going forward. We will need training on that, of course.
So I guess my question is this, and maybe now is where we connect all the dots. Thinking back from the water resource presentation, you could see our emphasis is on who has access into this box. So right now, somebody from maintenance is banging keys to make a key card.
Yes.
Okay? How many digits are in the password is logging in?
I do not know the answer.
There's
to
the
that.
problem. Yeah. I'm not saying you should know the answer. There's the problem that we're going to fix because we need to make sure that even though we're not banging the keys on that box, just like we're not banging the keys on your box, you are conforming to our security standard or you're going to compromise all of us because you're on our network.
And the last thing we want is to do that.
No, I appreciate
100% we
it.
want to
I'm just trying to
work together
articulate
going forward.
what the challenge has been from day one
Yes.
with just turning this thing all over to maintenance, and they're banging keys, and they're saying, we don't want to remember 21 characters, we're going to make it a 4-digit number, and we're off and running making key cards. That's great for making key cards, and the argument that we would hear from a vendor would be, we've got unsophisticated users who don't really want to remember, but they forget they're hanging on our background. And once somebody gets into one box, they're into everybody's box. So that's the threshold problem.
Can we just circle back to okay, ADP's gonna take over the key card server. Seems smart. But then, how is maintenance gonna keep making the keys for just the commissioner's office if we're not on a cloud-based server?
Well, I'm assuming because nobody understands how this thing works, they're just gonna let them continue to have access.
No, no. The key card actual creation will come into the commissioner's office, and you guys will train us and help us set it up to meet your standard. And we'll be making, under our hiring authority, and my understanding was you didn't want us doing it for the others, or they don't want us doing it for them.
For who's
For
them?
the, for example, veterans, soil
Well,
and water,
well-
title department.
Well, so just to be clear, and I don't wanna, I'm not professing to be the expert at this, and Jim probably is more expert. Our challenge was, and we've maintained this from the very beginning, the commissioners have no authority to provide technology to other elected parties. There's nothing in the law. That's what ADP's board was created for. This board was created by election of the Board of County Commissioners to serve all elected bodies in the county. When it did that, it precluded the commissioners, actually it didn't even do that, it never allowed the commissioners to provide that service. The only way that service could be provided is through a board. Otherwise, every one of us has to go out and hire our own IT expert and our own infrastructure, and you're going to have 21 flavors of technology. The goal of this board is consistency, uniformity, and lowest cost. That's the goal, with the highest level of security and the most secure environment we can provide. When you fracture that over 10 electeds, I'm going to say it's 21 characters, Sheila may say it's 26, Celeste will say it's 8. Who knows? Well, I'm sorry, Celeste, because you want your dog to type it in, but that's what can happen. So this avoids that. So when we spin off and let an entity operate a system, that's why we've required Water Resources to conform to our basic security level. So there's no outlier that compromises the rest of us. That's the risk.
Can I tell you my understanding and you tell me where I'm wrong? Our office does abide by your standard. And it was my understanding that you didn't want maintenance to be involved in this. And so that's why we said then, give us access to the software. We will make the cards using your standards. But as you say, we don't have control over Sheila's people.
Here's what I would challenge that statement on.
Okay.
Right now, your department is not conforming to ADP because you're making key cards right now on a password scheme that we have no knowledge of. You're on our network banging keys, and we don't know anything about it. We didn't even know how you were getting access.
Well, that's what we're here to try to
Oh,
fix.
no, I understand.
My issue, without it being a cloud-based system, I just want to get to the heart of this issue. You can't have the commissioners making key cards and then you guys making key cards for everybody else
Well, Jerry indicated
with this current technology.
Jerry
Am I
claims
right
this
or
could
wrong?
be siloed. I don't know.
We don't
Maybe
know
they can-
that.
Maybe
We
they
talked
can
about
answer
this.
that.
We don't know because ADP has never been into the
Yeah,
server.
what's the Intertech gentleman's name?
Keith.
Hey, Keith.
May I?
Yeah, is this system, are you capable of siloing it?
Yeah, the only difference between a cloud-based system and that system, the RS2 system, is the server's physical instead of in the cloud. That's the only difference. So if access can be given anywhere at any time to anyone, depending on your policy. And the passwords are able to be changed to whatever your policy is. There's a million different ways to go about access and passwords with that system, just like a cloud-based system.
Well, there is an exception to just like a cloud-based. A cloud-based, anybody from anywhere that has authority can get into the system and deactivate a card in the middle of the night versus a on-prem server where you have to be able to get connected to that device, either through some remote means or through some physical means, correct?
I'm sorry to disagree, but no, with the RS2 system, you can do that as well.
Do what as well? How do I, right now on my phone, get access to that RS2 system?
There is an application add-on for like a mobile app that could give you access to that system.
Yeah, but right now, the system we have in that building, can I do that?
No, not unless you buy that portion of the
See,
software.
there we go. We're back.
It's a license.
Yeah.
It's a license, basically,
Yeah.
that you would need to purchase.
So you're changing you're modifying the current system in order to provide the same features that a cloud-based service would provide.
Correct.
Okay, so can we, maybe we should investigate this one, but can we, okay, ADP takes control of the physical server, right? Then we get the app add-on, and then ADP gives administrative key card privileges to,
For these doors,
for these
segmented
doors,
under- yeah.
to whoever in the commissioner's
You silo
office.
it. You silo the
Yeah.
machine.
I mean, we're doing it. The system you guys did for us is fantastic. So that's where
But it's a different system, Jim.
it is, but it sounds like this could operate the same.
Theoretically, I think it is.
But it's not like this making you get a stack of key cards and you go up and you scan one and it pops up on my app and I can allow that key card to have access and I can type in whose it is. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not rocket science. If I could do it, anybody.
Frank showed it to me one day, and the feeling was, even you could do this, Linda.
Yeah, it's not hard. So, but, there's 3 people in my office that have that administrative access. That can add and subtract cards at any time. I mean, it sounds like we could maybe, but it sounds like what we need to do is ADP needs to get into the server, work with the vendor, see what the add-on is. Let's see if it's possible to do this. Is that right?
That's what I understand.
Okay.
We
Because
need to figure out how.
the end goal is ADP runs the server, and we segregate out the commissioner's hiring authority, and they can go.
And Sheila's, you want to be
Yeah.
able to control your
And
doors.
so
right?
Sheila can do what I can do, and the commissioner.
Board of Elections are gonna wanna control their
Yeah.
doors. They don't want somebody else. doing
And I
it.
can pull up on my phone right now who accessed what doors and when, and they should all have that under their own, but they shouldn't be able to look at somebody else's, right? Is that what we're doing? Okay, so I don't know that we can approve this. I think right? Do you guys need to get into the server and see what the deal is? Talk to the
I have
vendor.
no idea how that looks in terms of segregating the various zones across the new building, and then also adding common areas to each zone where then those users have control without blocking out other users and creating issues. This
Yeah,
is
that
much-
could. Yeah,
See,
that's
the problem we had
complicated.
is we've lived through a period of time where we've been told a whole lot of different things, right? And not everybody who's been saying these things understood the system. For example, I believe Intertech was in, or somebody was in, pulling all kinds of wires to another area because they were told you had to move the server. Isn't that my understanding? There were holes drilled in the walls and
Well, there's cables
Some
pulled.
cables were pulled.
pulled. So this whole idea that you can actually do this from anywhere, you wouldn't physically move this box out of that server room, right?
Yes.
So,
We wouldn't have our own network to do it and have to hire somebody to run the network and,
Right.
and change all of the,
or the pulling those wires wasn't necessary.
yes.
Does Keith know the extent of
Yeah,
Keith, in terms of the yellow, for lack of a better word, banana cables that have been pulled throughout the whole building that are not connected to any controllers or anything,
I don't think Intertech did that. Somebody else
did Harrington do
I
that?
think Harrington
Oh.
did that.
Keith, do you not know anything about those?
I do know some about those, yes.
Okay.
Why were those pulled? Can you tell us?
Again, the concern was physical access to equipment. So the control panels, including the server, were all in ADP rooms. And if there was any issues with getting access to those panels in the server, which in the very beginning there was, I believe that was resolved. But in the beginning, there was some issues getting access to the server and panels during the setup phase, during completion, things like that, and getting things up and going. And so that's when I believe the concerns started to become what they were, as far as let's look at physically moving this equipment, so there's never an issue getting access. That was I believe that was the point.
Well, I think in the setup phase, that was mostly completed in early 2022. I don't recall seeing the cables installed until
After the lawsuit was filed.
end of 22, beginning of 23, but I'm not sure when that actually went down.
To my knowledge,
Yeah, that I don't know.
the doors were operating
I'm not
in the
sure.
building when they were pulling the wires. Because it was post-lawsuit. And during session, you could hear the drills running. You were there probably, right?
Yeah, we were.
So if it was during the startup of the building, you would think they'd have to have done this because the fear was we couldn't get this building running, you know, I mean, I don't know. But
I
maybe
can't
that's,
speak to that because it happened before I got here. And as soon as I began to drill down and discover what was happening and what it was gonna cost, everything stopped spending money for nothing. So,
Okay.
and they agreed to that. So,
Keith, do you know what those cables do or where they go? Are they just dead cables throughout the whole building?
Yes, so just to clarify, everybody, this was, contractual between Harrington, Fedora Intertech, and the design team, Independence, etc. And we were, and the team was being directed to do these things through the contract, and so that's why they were being completed.
through, I'm sorry, Keith, through the contract, what contract are you referring to?
The construction contract.
So the construction contract specified you move the server?
The original contract did not. No, this came later. We were still under contract when we were instructed to do this.
It wasn't a new contract though, Keith? Was it just a change order under the existing one?
Yes, correct. It was a change order.
How much was that?
Yeah, do you have the details of that? Do you know when that happened and who authorized it and what the amount was?
I do not. Again, we were contracted through Harrington Electric, who was contracted with Independence. So my understanding is the direction came from Independence, but who gave that direction to Independence, I don't know.
You said the G word. I promised I would say it. I told Linda. I wouldn't use the G word.
Okay, so for our purposes,
We already did earlier.
I don't know.
is it possible for us to approve the moving of the control of the server to ADP, let the rest of it ride for a while until he's had a chance to investigate and set up a process?
Here's the problem. Who has credentials to this box now?
He thinks maintenance does. Maintenance doesn't know anything about
Well,
that.
they have to be logging into McKees.
That's all they're
Well,
doing.
yeah, but I would caution with that because they may just have some pre-typed in saved password that they just click OK on. That's my concern with that. Keith, does Chris, your technician, still have full credentials to the server?
He would have access only if approved by, now again, this is my last meeting with them and what I was told, but it was only through approval of the maintenance commissioner's office and getting onto the network through ADP, unless he was on site.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. I apologize.
Yeah, if he was on site, then he could get access from the same computer that maintenance gets access to it.
No, okay. Let's take that a step back. If he gets access to T300 and he physically accesses the server, flips up the monitor, there's a keyboard in there, does he actually have credentials to the physical box itself in there?
From the administrative password, probably yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So here's my biggest concern. We now have a box hanging on our network that's server grade. We don't know the version it's running. We don't know the patch level it's sitting at. It's on our backbone, and we have no credentials.
It sounds like Linda's offering to ADP take over the server and then
Get the credentials.
get the credentials, and then you guys try to straighten this out.
Yeah, first thing we have to do is secure the box.
Yeah,
Well,
and
right.
then we'll try to get the.
But it's the getting the credentials that concerns answer. I don't know that maintenance has the
I
admin.
don't think they know, you say credentials, I don't think they know what credentials
do
are.
anything.
No, but this, the internet will give it to you, so,
But we didn't know, it sounds like.
We didn't know they had it, we thought just maintenance had it.
but Linda, forewarn you, if we do that, if they take over the server, until they can get this added module, at least for temporarily, it sounds like maintenance will lose the ability to do the key cards, at least temporarily, until they figure it out.
They will.
May I say something, gentlemen? May I say something?
Sure.
So the application add-on, or for lack of better ways to explain it, the additional license, that would be for remote access through, an iPad, a computer, or phone that's off-site. So it would be accessed from the wide area network, not the local area network. If ADP took over the server and didn't change the password for maintenance, they would still have access to the software.
Yeah, we're worried about, I understand that, but we still want to explore whether the conventional server will satisfy all the other departments that have to fall under this key card system. And that's going to require this application work, because you guys are going to want remote, right? You're not going to want to have to go down there. You're going to want to be able to, from home, I got to turn this person off because they're retired or whatever, right? I mean, that makes sense. I think.
Yeah, and anything we can do to help, guys.
Okay.
Everybody, we'd be more than happy to help. Whether it's giving you information about the server or access. I mean, you guys already have access to everything on that server. You have all that access already. That's been given to maintenance in the commissioner's office. So, but if there's any issue with that at all, please just let us know and we'll help in any way.
Well, Keith, I think there is going to be an issue with that because maintenance doesn't know they have it. So that's the first problem.
Okay.
And the login credentials for the server may not be the same as their credentials to make a key card.
Correct.
That is correct. Yes, I'm just saying as far as the RS2 system itself.
Yep, I understand.
And and we were required, just so you understand, per the contract, we are required to hand all that information over to Independence, who is the main contractor for that project. So all that information we had to give over to the design team, to the construction team, to the owner, and then have that signed off on the complete contract.
Keith, do you know what version that server is, and is it current?
I apologize, I do not, but I can find out pretty easily.
Okay.
Is it my understanding that means that the construction company still has access to all of the
Well, that's my
cards?
question. If this password's never been changed, that means the credentials are in probably 5 people's hands. 4 of them probably don't know they have it, but they have it.
Which we didn't care about because we thought that the only access was at the terminal
Right.
in the locked
We
room
didn't even,
that they
we're
have
just
control
learning
over.
that there's remote access into this box. We were unaware in all of our conversations because we were led to believe that's what the issue was with the lawsuit, is that if we didn't let them get into that space, for whatever reason, we were boxing them out of making a key card. And that's not a true statement.
So it sounds like we need to actually get this done immediately.
We need to get the credentials and change the
reset,
credentials so at least
Yeah.
the
Yes.
box is protected.
Okay.
Not the credentials of Glenn making a key card, but the box, the physical server box, so that nobody can go in there and do something nefarious. And we get the updates in.
Okay, but day one when we do that, then ADP now controls the box with the admin passwords for the actual server itself. Then Glenn continues to have full access to everybody's system.
No,
Right now, for right
you
now.
guys took over the server, I assume job one is going to be to eliminate the passwords, eliminate the remote access, and put in MFA.
Well, there is going to be, to Frank's point, there is going to be a short window of time of transition where we are detaching certain people's doors.
Well, that's why I'm warning Linda, like,
Well, yeah.
yeah,
It's not gonna be 1 minute, you're just, everybody's.
yeah, maintenance may not be able to make keys for a couple weeks,
Yeah, that's
or you, it's all gonna have to go through
Right.
ADP
Yeah.
until you.
ADP's gotta figure this
So
out
you add
and
this
silo it
module.
accordingly, build the password levels,
Right.
push them out to the appropriate people.
My guess is right now within there, it's built as one big collective entity, right?
Yeah.
And then anybody who goes in there has access over all of it. Assuming that it has the ability to be siloed independently by zones and locations and all that stuff. That's a time type of
Who,
a thing.
who would you assign?
Who's been making your
Well,
cards?
we already have the people for that.
So
It would
Glenn
be
is
Joe
doing
and
everybody?
Rod. The
Okay.
point is that will not be done in 2
Yeah.
days.
No, that's
or
gonna
maybe
take.
that could take weeks.
Yeah,
So,
we need to figure this out. We need to figure out which doors are assigned to which groups. We need to do all of that.
so here's how it looks day one. Either Glenn retains full access while we build this in the background, or Glenn loses all access and ADP retains full access. Only one can have full access to make all the key cards and do all that stuff until the system is built properly.
Until we're ready to flip the switch.
Well, I'm not comfortable with you guys taking over a server and not bringing it up to your standards.
Yeah, I don't know we don't know what version it is. We need to figure out.
Like you get, if you take over the server, then.
Yeah, we can do that. We can do that pretty quickly. We'll put in the high character password, MFA, all that stuff. Within the system itself then, only one entity will be able to have full access to all of it, at least in the weeks until they're segmented off and built.
With the
Who's going to have
commissioners-
that?
The commissioners have a problem if this thing is temporarily, completely turned over to ADP so that we could mitigate any server issues and begin to create the silos and then redistribute it out to the commissioners and all of the other parties.
Where do I sign?
Okay.
So we also need to get the buy-in of the other individuals who are within there. We're talking
Yeah,
about
so
Sheila.
I really want to make sure though, that I can access, that it's separate, that I can access my employees, whether to turn it on, turn it off.
You will, but
And I
not
got right away.
immediately. Immediately, we will have
Right,
control over
but I
everything
want to make
because
sure
we have
that
to
the
silo.
current system we have does have the ability, I know we
Right.
said that there's an app,
We
you
hope.
can add on, right.
I don't know.
But before we spend the money to do that,
Right. That's
We'd
what
like to
we have to
make
get the
sure.
server first to figure that out. I hear what
Okay.
you're saying.
okay.
That's our concern as well. And according to what Keith has said, it's no different than a cloud-based server, which you should be able to silo. And if that's the case, we have to figure out how to do that and how to re-partition the various doors to various entities.
Right now, it won't affect you any differently, right? Maintenance is controlling the whole system.
Right.
So either it's maintenance or ADP, you're still not doing it right now.
Right.
The only change and effect happens with the commissioners in terms of maintenance, then not having any immediate control while the different zones are being built or however.
But they still have physical keys, it's not like.
They still have brass keys. That's what we need to know, because I don't want to get sued again.
Well, and I don't want to get sideways with my bosses, and I haven't asked that specific question.
That's
Is
why.
it possible to move the, as far as I know, ever since Glenn's been managing it over these last 4, 5, 6 months, everybody's getting the keys they need when they need them. Is that correct?
I don't think
Or is
that's,
that not correct?
I don't think that's the case. There's been some access issues.
I've been asking Jerry for a year for a better key card for more access to different buildings. And last week he told me, go ask Glenn.
The initial setup that you got worked. Since then, modifications and changes. Health has a meeting in the evening. Maintenance has not had the ability to change that. They have to pay somebody to come and hold doors open. It's the initial setup worked.
I was with Jim when we tried to grab a conference room, a common conference room, and you would think he would be able to swipe and get in. Couldn't get in.
Can you with your new card? Or is that the card he has now?
That was the card I think we were trying.
One maintenance person, Paul, made me a card for A334.
That was it?
That's it.
When?
A couple months ago.
So do you have a better one now?
No.
How many cards? Well, you should have the same thing I have. Because I have one
May
for
may I,
Jerry.
may I say one thing?
Yeah,
I
Keith.
apologize. This is Keith Robbins. I have to run here. I have a meeting starting in a few minutes, but I just wanted to say that as far as it sounds like to me that there may be some additional training needed. We have a service agreement that's kind of been hanging out because of some of these issues that you all are discussing. But part of that service agreement would be additional training for the system for for some of the things that you guys are discussing right now. So I just want to let you guys know that agreement's still hanging there with the warranty and everything. So if there's a way that can get executed, then we can start training some individuals like yourselves to have better understanding of how the system works and anything else you guys might need.
Yeah, Keith, thank you for participating in the meeting today. It was very helpful, and you really did provide a lot of information. You've been great to work with, so has Chris. Yeah, you're free to go. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everybody, appreciate it.
Thanks, Keith.
I'm guessing you don't discuss that.
So,
Not at the moment, I'm not even aware of that, it's the first I've heard.
No, it's the one you
So-
have.
Oh, no, we're not doing that.
so do you want to go back to the commissioners?
It's $250,000, no, we're not doing it.
Do you want to go back to the commissioners, is that what you're saying?
Well, we have a commissioner.
Yeah, well,
And
yeah, but you should, I
I know.
mean, you want.
That's why I was asking if you, I was gonna say,
Of course, they sued
can
us
you
for it.
take the server, let Glenn continue making the cards while you
That's not my call, that's the
figure.
board's call.
Well, and that's what I'm putting out, bless you, so that there would be no loss of service to the employees in terms of getting the
Oh, no,
cards.
no, no, I can tell you there will be no loss of service if ADP is managing the cards. I don't have an issue with that. I just don't want to share a system with maintenance. Again, Galaxy was a disaster, I don't want to do that again.
Yeah, you know, I think,
Even temporarily for a few weeks.
Linda, it didn't go well last time, this predates you.
well, I mean, I think Linda, and my issue is, I was not even aware that maintenance was getting access to the system.
How did you think we were getting our cards?
Intertech,
I thought
You thought
Intertech,
Intertech was making.
because they're the only ones that had access.
Which
You and
we
I
were-
talked about it.
we were comfortable with, we would let Chris go in the room,
They
somebody
come
would
in,
watch
they make a
it.
request for ADP to open the door, we'd open the door, they're smart people.
He's a tech, he knows what he's doing, he's the only one we let in
They'd
there.
sit at the terminal, bang stuff out, we thought, okay, there you go.
We would
All of a
watch.
sudden, no, there's been no problems, because Glenn's been in the back room, some closet, making cards. Whoa, wait a minute, what password?
So that's the history of the Galaxy system up here and the disaster that was. Working with Intertech on that system has not been a problem. I have zero issue working with them or providing cards or access or any of that stuff. I don't want to share the system in the meantime.
I would feel comfortable, and you, please correct me if I'm wrong, I would feel comfortable if the motion to do that would also include in it specific language that would say, once you get it situated the way you need it to be, then the control of making cards moves to other people, subject to training and,
Well, it's not just the making the card, it's actually configuring the system then. So it's the larger, I would just call it configuring the system. It's not just as simple as making the plastic card, it's also,
that's all we want. We
Yep.
just want to make it, we don't want to mess with the system, we just want to make the.
Yeah,
I think you do want to mess with this.
I don't think this board has ever resisted enough, I mean, everybody on this board that's represented wants control of their cards, right? I mean,
Right.
all the electeds want their own control. So I don't think that's changed, and I don't think
That's-
this board's gonna vote on something that's gonna compromise that position.
It's no different than Jim Flace's office. We do not want to be in the business of
Yeah.
having to add and subtract cards.
So
Unless
if
somebody
you need
wants
us to
it.
add that verbiage, I don't have a problem adding it, because that's our intention.
That covers me with.
You guys insult us?
Yeah, I'm just saying, I don't want to get this access day one and then day two get sued for maintenance being locked out of the system. I'm not doing that. I know it sounds
No, I
ridiculous, but
understand.
it's actually
I understand.
happened.
That
Would you be comfortable?
I'm very comfortable with that. And when you do have full access to making cards and everything, if we need a card or somebody gets terminated, you can do that for us.
Yeah, okay.
You
So
mean
there'll be no
you
interruption.
mean in the interim?
Yeah, in the interim.
Of course, of course. Yeah, I mean, we're not gonna say, hey, lots of luck, turned it over.
Does that sound okay to you?
Yeah, that's great, that's great.
So can we
Can I see this?
encapsulate this motion so Pam can get this written down? So the motion is that the commissioners will turn over the access, all access to the current server of the
Well, that's not really the motion, will be ADP will take over access of the current key card server.
Okay.
Temporarily.
Temporarily to begin the migration to a siloed system.
Well, no, permanent, you're always gonna control the server, but then ADP will take immediate steps to segregate the different,
Three different words,
yeah,
the same
the
thing.
different,
Let's go with silo.
the different offices, yeah, silo,
Sounds
the
like a
different,
farm.
that's fine. The different offices. Now, it sounds like you're gonna have to pay for another license or something, but,
Well, we may have to pay for training too, from what it sounds. I don't know what it's
I'm not sure we will. He knows how to do it, and he can teach us how to do it, what we need to know.
okay. And ADP will work with Intratec to give each office and department and
Yeah,
hiring
as long
authority
as
their
there's,
own
if
access.
there's any authority issue, though, we're gonna need the commissioners to grant authority to Intertech to give us that data, because he's saying, under contract, he's required to give it to the Board of County Commissioners, and that's what they did.
They report to independence reports to the
Commissioners, so we're gonna need some authority granted by the commissioners, so that we can reach out, well, let's cut the middleman out of this, let's just get the data.
Unless somebody has the credentials to the server itself, turns them over, and then immediately
And they work,
it's all
yeah.
will be changed.
I'm gonna guess we don't.
Maybe they're on a flat file in some server somewhere.
I don't.
Sticky note on the screen.
Post it though.
I don't think that's.
Okay, so
that-
but our
I don't
motion
think
is
that's a
just
joke.
ADP's gonna take over the server permanently and immediately take steps to silo different departments and hiring authorities and provide them with their own access
Right.
and key card making.
And then we
and
will-
key card making of
We
it.
will have to go to the commissioners should there be any additional cost or license requirement in order to perform this function. Is that reasonable?
fund.
Yeah, we'll seek funding.
Are you okay with?
Yes, I'm just thinking in my own mind, what do I need to ask the board to do to facilitate this?
We need server credentials.
Whoever is,
And I don't know who has the authority.
All they have to do is tell Intratec,
I
and
mean,
the
I feel like we
Intratec
should just be able to tell them.
tech has.
well, yeah,
The
but
board
we
should
know
have to
Glenn's
take
got,
action.
we know Glenn's got passwords, right? We know he's got something, so maybe he's got something he didn't know that he.
I don't know. I know for a fact Chris from Intertech has credentials to the hard server itself. I don't know that Glenn does, unless he has it just to the
That
software.
really bothers me. You gotta, again, we have a vendor hanging out there with access to a server that's on our backbone.
Yes.
Okay, well, we're fixing it, so I make that motion.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Yes.
Pam, can you read back the motion?
No.
Okay.
It's on there.
Okay, so the motion,
So
roughly.
ADP's taking over the server, they're taking immediate steps to silo the different hiring authorities and departments and granting them their own individual access to their own key card areas. Is that okay?
Does that mean I might actually get key cards and not like a metal key?
So unfortunately, you're not.
This is just for the, this is just for the.
Okay, I
But you
You're still
have a
painting your own
request-
bathrooms, sorry.
You have a request still
You have
pending
an
with
open,
maintenance.
that's another issue. You have an open request for that. We're just waiting for money to come from Glenn to pay for that.
I need to talk to you
Yeah.
after I talk to him, so I'll walk down if that's okay, and you can talk.
I mean, they only have
about it.
4.6 million, so I don't know, if you're
Come on,
$7,000.
I don't
we're
wanna
making
get off
such
the topic.
progress. Let's just,
We're making good headway,
we're
let's
doing
just keep
really,
it that
we're
way.
like the bowship of the Titanic.
Sticky
headed toward
fingers that
that.
are in there pretty soon. So-
Okay, so that's the motion.
It's
Did you,
motion. So
you
call
good
for
with
vote
that?
again?
I think we got it.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yes, I voted yes.
I don't have the whole thing, but I think we
okay, I
can
vote
figure it
yes.
out.
Anyone
This
else?
is roll call.
You want to do a roll call?
We were slow to come to the table. Okay, anybody opposed?
Motion stands.
I'd like to think this is the last of this, but
Once again,
I'm a
thank
pessimist.
everyone so much for everything that's been done to get us to a solution here. I really
Yeah, well-
appreciate it, and I hope that soon it will be done. And I'll do everything I can to help facilitate that, so make sure. And I've also, in fact, sent you, I've already drafted a policy about this, so that you can tell me what's wrong with it.
So that's the other thing everyone should know. Once we do push this back out, we are going to establish the password policy of the person in the departments, requiring them to maintain the certain,
Yes.
right? We're gonna push that out. We'll probably set those. Don't you think? We'll have to figure out how the system works.
I think they should just comply with the ADP password policy we have.
Yeah.
And have a draft.
hopefully it's gonna be like the cameras, it's gonna be a little icon on their computer
That's-
that they're gonna log in and then they, just like I can see 5 cameras, they can have access to 10 doors, right?
It would be no different.
That's the hope.
That's what I'm envisioning, so.
You got it? Okay. What else we have, Frank?
Agenda item number 8 is any regular business.
That in case something happened.
Seeing that there's no regular business,
Public comment.
move on to public comment, agenda item number 9.
Anybody have,
Comment or
anybody want to take a
question?
stab at this?
Don't ask what we said either.
Yeah.
What was their motion? No,
No.
it'll be in the minutes.
Well, I want to make a statement that before the lawsuit, I suggested in a public meeting that we have a composite crew on the server and I'm glad that we're getting closer to this point.
Any other comment from the public?
No, thanks everybody for
They're
enjoying.
exhausted.
Seeing
Enjoying
that
the
there's
thing.
no public comment, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We're adjourned.
Jim's already up and out the door. Thank you, everybody.